Hi guys, this is Anna and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm continuing to summarize my 2017 reading year, and in this installment I would like to tell you about the top 10 books I have read this year. So as of today, today's 24th, Merry Christmas for those of you who celebrate tonight. As of tonight, I have finished 103 books this year, which is sort of my average. On average, I read between 50 to 150 books. I don't really make massive plans to read more than that. And for this video, I have decided to include only the books which I have read for the very first time this year. So a lot of my reading this year was rereading, and I'll talk about it in my summarization video for the year overall. So I have excluded things like War and Peace or Bratьев Karamazov, for example, from this video because I have read these books previously. The 10 books you're going to see are going to be in non-particular order. I'm going to try to go chronologically as I read them and tell you a little bit why I like these books, and if you have not read them before, why I think you should. Right, without further ado, the first book I have read and gave 5 stars and absolutely loved this year was George Orwell's 1984. I know it's shocking, it's taken me that long to actually read this book. I absolutely loved it. This is the best utopian sort of science fiction fantasy world I've read. I'm not big on this genre to begin with, but this one I really loved. I found it terrifying, particularly the aspects we talk about demification of society and the change to the language which would yield a more stupefied society overall. I found it very current, very modern and beautiful. To me this is sort of borderline horror. Really would highly recommend this. Another book I absolutely loved, and I think more people should read it, it's Willa Cather, her book of Pioneers. This is the first of her American trilogy when she describes how the pioneers went into the Wild West, sort of difficult countries like Montana, and tried to settle there. They were farmers. I absolutely love this. This is to me more novella rather than a whole full-blown novel. But the language is beautiful, it's topical, she's poignant, the character development and characterization is just brilliant. I loved the character language she has used, very period. And I definitely would like to read more by Willa Cather. She's one of those authors I discovered for the first time this year, and I would like to continue to know them better. The third book I really loved is Alice Walker's The Color Purple. It has taken me a very long time to actually read this book. This has won a Pulitzer Prize back in 1983. It's a book set in the South. We deal with a black character who had a very unfortunate upbringing, shall we say. She didn't have any nice time whatsoever when she got married, and it's taken her a very long time to assess herself as a person, to find out who she really is, to grow as an individual, and to find happiness as a result of it. It's a very pro-woman, pro-toleration book. It's a very tolerant society which shows you that we're all equal and everyone deserves to have better chances in life, and everyone can change and improve if you're willing to give them time and help. Beautifully written. I can see why this book won the Pulitzer Prize. I can see why the movie was made based on this book and why it became such a success. I love the writing style. The language, even though obviously English is my second language, I found very easy to read. I love epistolarian genre, so I love to read letters, and it's written as a series of letters between the two sisters who get separated very early on, but they do meet later towards the end of the book. So it does have a happy ending. If you like difficult books but with a sort of silver lining in the end, this one is for you. Another one I loved, unfortunately has not been translated into English. This is by a Russian sort of late 19th century author. We call it sort of the beginning of the silver period in Russian literature, Aleksandr Kuprin, and the book is called Yonkers. It's partly autobiographical. It deals with the young guy as he goes through the military academy. So he grows from a very unruly, very willful teenager when he's 13 into a much more grown man, when again he realizes who he is as an individual. And the language, the Russian language in this book is phenomenal. It's worth read just for the language. I'm really hopeful that this book will be translated. I'm gonna have a look. It might have been translated once, but has not been republished for a very long time. I absolutely love this, and I need to pick up more by this author because I've read him back in school in Russia quite a lot actually, because my teacher loved him, but it's been years. Another wonderful encounter for me this year was Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. This is his first book of the trilogy. It's his African trilogy. He's a very well established, very well known Nigerian author who kind of opened the African literature to the Western world. And there's nothing about this book I did not like, honestly. The language, the setting, how atmospheric it is. For such a tiny book, it really holds a punch. I loved it from page 1 to the last one. I did not want to say goodbye to this. I have not purchased the other 2 in the trilogy. I'm absolutely going to read them in 2018. He basically opened the floodgate for other African authors. I just want to read more African literature now. It's absolutely beautifully written. It shows you the time period, which is quite difficult for British people because this is the time when the British people went to colonize Nigeria. So that's why it later became part of the Commonwealth when the British Empire fell apart. So it shows you the clash of two cultures. So you have the British people coming in with their religion, with their norms and standards of what a polite society should look like. And you have a very tribal society in this very remote part of Nigeria, which still believes in the gods and the agriculture-based calendar year. And the two cultures just head on towards each other, and they have this massive collision, and everyone is affected as a result of it. Absolutely stunning. If you have not read Chinua Achebe before, I highly recommend this. Another new author for me this year, it's just basically all of it pretty much is new authors, is Magda Szabo the Door. This is a Hungarian author. I've never heard of her before the beginning of this year, and then I came across some of references to her in the Slightly Foxed magazine, and I've seen some of them on the, whatever it's called, New York Review Books, because they have translated 3 of her books now. I have read The Door, and I have one already purchased from the publisher, and I'm really keen to go and purchase the 3rd one. I love this book. I love this book. And I found it challenging, and I found it difficult, and I did not like any of the characters, but I still love this book. I don't know, there's something about it which really talked to me on a personal level. Definitely I could connect with all of the characters in this book. I did not disagree with them. I found them mostly horrible, but yet I could connect with them. And I don't know, maybe it's the fact that I grew up in Soviet Union and Russia, and some of the world described in this book is set at a communistic time, so I can appreciate the repressive feeling and atmosphere of the time, and I can obviously understand where the characters are coming from, but it has nothing to do really with communism. It has to do with the relationship between 2 women. A woman of leisure in a way. She's a prominent writer. She's wife of a very prominent writer in her country, and she hires this woman to be her domestic help. And the 2 women come from completely 2 different worlds, the different ages, the different social economic background. They have a very different idea of the world, and yet they find this beautiful friendship, which the younger of the 2 ruins, stupidly ruins. And you can see it's going to be complete and utter train wreck. You can see it's going to be horrible, and yet she does it. And you witness it happening, and you witness the aftermath, and it's painful, and oh, it grabs you and just turns your heart inside out. It's so good. I highly recommend this. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is my first novel by Donna Tartt, and I know it's a bit of a Marmite. Some people love it, some people hate it. I know that, for example, Olive from the book Olive, she doesn't like it. I love this book. Absolutely love this book, and yet I hated every single character. It's not like I disliked them. I actually felt hatred towards a few of them. I love the way the book is written. I love the humor and the language. The language is impeccable. I can see how this easily took her 8 years to write and rewrite, and the craftsmanship of this shines. The language and the way she chooses to construct her sentences is beautiful from a literary point of view. How she depicts her characters as those obnoxious teenagers entitled obnoxious teenagers, and yet you have one who wants to look like he's from high up in the society. Oh, it's beautiful. I love the way she's taken the Iliad as a premise for this book. So she tells you right in the first page it's going to be murder. One of those obnoxious characters in this very posh private college in America who do classics, they all study classics, is going to be murdered by his friends from this tiny little circle of friends. So you know it's gonna happen, and then you spend the rest of this book, which is quite big, finding out why they killed him, how they killed him, and mostly why, and why just one, why not the rest of them, and why has it taken them that long to kill him, because Bunny was pretty obnoxious. I find the humor in this book very subtle but very much there. It's, to be honest, like in the way the humor transpires, it's very British, which is interesting for an American author. And yet the main protagonist of the book, the main narrator of this book, he's very much Californian. And the Californian accent in the beginning drove me crazy, because even though it's written work, I could just hear the Orange County accent, which I just don't like. It grates on my ears. Oh, it's beautiful. It made me want to go and read the Iliad, actually, more Greek tragedies, because you can see how she was inspired. She was a student in a private college in a sort of Massachusetts area, New England, when she was writing this book. She was doing Hurley Shirley May, and you can see that she was studied classics. It's great. I can see why it became bestseller. I can see why critics loved it. Cannot wait to read more by Donna Tartt. Right, 3 books remaining. I'll show you the one by the British author called The End of the Affair by Graham Greene. I have talked about this book earlier in the fall, because I've read it very early in the fall, September, October. And this book surprised me. I had preconceived notions of what it's going to be like. I thought The End of the Affair, so it's going to be about 2 people, how the relationship didn't work out. But this book was so much more than just a relationship gone bad. It's how 2 people love each other and at the same time hate each other. There is so much of this tiny book devoted to the idea of jealousy and how the jealousy rusts you, and you don't want to be jealous as an individual. You quite despise yourself for that, and yet you cannot help it. It's like a disease. And you struggle with it over and over and over again. It's just not letting go. I love the way this novel was quite personal for the author, because he's of Irish descent, but he grew up in England. So he has conflicted notions about the Catholic religion versus Protestantism and religion as a whole. He's quite an agnostic, but in this book, he struggles with the idea of religion and society, because one of the main characters in this book, she finds God, she turns to religion, and one of the decisions she makes in this book is because she promised something to God, he gives her something back. So he chooses to use the premise of the book as a personal study, where he looks inside himself as an author, as an ex-Catholic, and he asks the fundamental question is, does the God exist? Should we believe in God? How does it comply with the modern world? Well, the modern world, this is started during World War II, but relatively modern, still 20th century. Less than 100 years ago, in fact. I found it really interesting, because I'm an agnostic. I don't like books which just pontificate me on religion. I find them patronizing, but this one wasn't. This one actually engaged with me as a reader and made me ask myself the same fundamental question. So I admire this as a skill in the author. I admire Graham Greene a lot. I would like to read more. I have purchased more of his works, because I think this is going to be a lasting relationship I have with him as a reader. Right, the last 2 books will not come to you as a surprise if you've been watching my channel. So I'm going to start with the one I haven't actually finished. I'm still reading it. I'm savoring this. This is the collection of short stories and some of the non-fiction publications by Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges. This one is published by the Modern Classics, and in English it's translated as Labyrinth. It has different translation in Spanish, obviously different name in Spanish and in Russian, because in English they just named it after basically 2 short stories. One is called The Labyrinth, the other one has Labyrinth in its title, but in Russian it has completely different naming, so it's in Spanish. I've checked the Wikipedia. This, guys, has blown my mind. I did not expect this. why has it taken me so many years to actually pick up Jorge Luis Borges? I don't know, but I can tell you this has been the biggest discovery for me this year. Such a well-educated individual, such knowledge of vast amount of topics. The way he is so good with spinning the tale. I mean, you pick up any of his short stories and the ideas he conveys within 2-3 pages are more, the more detailed the world he creates, the atmosphere he sets out is more profound than a lot of the books which will take you 500 pages to read. He just had so many ideas in his head. His short stories are amazing. They're deep, they're philosophical. He uses so many literary references that it's mind-blowing. Honestly, you read it, you think about it, you find references he's mentioned, you read Wikipedia, or you pick up your anthology, like I have my English anthology which I picked up multiple times. You fill in the gaps and you go and reread it and you find a new level. It's like, it's bottomless. His stories, they're so multi-layered that the more you read them, the more you get out of them. I'm blown away, honestly. I think everyone should read Jorge Luis Borges. Absolutely everyone. If you like Umberto Eco, which I've also met as a new author for me this year, you have to read this first. He loves the fundamental European Western canon literature. He spoke fluently in Spanish, in English, in French, in German. He also understood Italian. He could read Greek and he could read Latin because he was really well educated. He read all of the Greek tragedies in traditional old-fashioned Greek language. He read people like Seneca in Latin. He uses the references to them. He loved Shakespeare, he loved Chaucer, he loved, oh god, who did he love? Chesterton. He loved Chesterton so much. The references he has to the late Victorian literature, honestly, are vast, to the point where I had to get the Pelican Companion, the 6th volume, when they talk about the late Victorian literature from Hardy to Trollope and Dickens, just to educate myself, because I felt like half of the book was going above my head, and it probably still is going above my head. I'm absolutely in love, and I'm floored by the level of intelligence that particular individual conveyed. Amazing book. And then, no surprises here, guys. The book which stayed with me for a very long time. You've seen it multiple times. I have 4 separate reviews as a series. This is the Alexandra Quartet by Lawrence Durrell, or Lawrence Durrell, whichever way you pronounce his name. British author, the older brother of another very known Durrell, who talked about natural world, naturalist. This is completely different. This is very partially based on his autobiographical experience of being a diplomat for the British Empire in Alexandria in Egypt. The short stories and the way they're written and the way they're constructed and the way they intervene is amazing. This is another onion-like book. Watch my reviews on it. I cannot give enough praises to this one. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I'm definitely going to read more Lawrence Durrell. I'm going to read this probably every year or every 2 years. It's definitely up my stream. This is the book for me. I know it's not for everyone because the language is difficult and flowery and overly detailed, and at the same time super difficultly constructed with a sentence like in Tolstoy, original Tolstoy. Sometimes you have a whole sentence running for half a page. It uses colons, semicolons. It's done for a reason, guys. Absolutely amazing. I can't say I love it enough. The only thing I would suggest, I have it in this massive mammoth volume with the tiniest font possible. I would love one day to purchase the original 4 volumes because it was published as 4 books. If you have a chance, I would highly recommend you do not buy this 4 in one, buy it as 4 individual books, because this made this impossible for me to read pretty much anywhere. I could not read this in bed, I could not take it with me, I could not read it on the go. I had to read it sitting at the table, which made the reading experience a little bit more challenging. I had to allocate myself a time during the day to do it, and I wanted to read it all the time. absolutely brilliant. If you have never heard of Lawrence Durrell, make a note. This book will change you. It is beautifully written, ahead of its time. It has everything. It has drama, family drama, personal drama, drugs, murder, mystery, clash of religions, clash of cultures, carnivals. It has amazing hunting scenes. It has pretty much incest, and it has everything. It has gore, it has tragedy, venereal diseases, everything you can possibly think of. Has people doing cross-gender, even that, for the time it was recent, that's amazing, definitely ahead of its time. So yeah, those were the 10 books for me which completely stand out from this year. Most of them I have read early in this year and I still remember, and I'm convinced that I will reread all of those books in the future. If you have read any of them, or you're planning to read any of them, please do let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Happy reading. Bye.